Fancy. Cool. Wicked. So, hello Jess, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very, very good, thank you. So start with talk about why we're getting together to create this video. And I think the main reason is we've got 24 beneficiaries in the program at the moment, and a lot of them have questions around how they can maximize their training, their nutrition for the expeditions or the climbs that they have coming up with M2M. And then also, I guess, just general nutrition advice. A lot of them have different medical conditions or mental health requirements. So yeah, we wanted to just jump on together to chat through some of those questions, and Jess is gonna do her best at answering what I chuck at her. So but yeah, a little bit of background. So I met Jess, God, how many years ago? Must be like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, 2019 maybe, around then, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Ed first got involved with climbing mountains in the Alps, and then yeah, Jess has been on some of our M2M climbs. Recently went to Nepal together as a physio. But yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit of background about how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So my background is I'm a physiotherapist and nutritionist. I worked first of all in physio and then just always had an interest in nutrition. So went back to uni sort of a lot later on to study nutrition. And since then really I've worked in both domains across sport and in general health. I'm now lucky enough to live in Chamonix, so I've got a lot of experience of working with and supporting mountain athletes. And like you say, I've been kind of around M2M for a while, lucky enough to be on a few of the trips, including Nepal last year. So I know what these expeditions and challenges involve, so hopefully I can give some advice and tips for getting prepared for them.
Yeah, and you're an absolute whiz on a mountain as well. Like, don't even get out of breath. So whatever you're doing, we need to do. Right. So I guess first off, as a M2M beneficiary will coming into the program and they'll be thinking about whatever climb they're going to do training wise. So what would you say are the main things nutritionally to be thinking about if somebody's preparing for a mountain climb or an expedition?
Yeah, sure. So I guess your aim for training is to build strength and enjoy and endurance so that you can then enjoy the mountains more, enjoy the expedition more, enjoy yourself when you're out. And so it's really important to fuel your training and to fuel your recovery to enable really the physiological adaptations from the training to progress your fitness and your strength. It's likely that with training is going to be increasing your energy needs, you're going to be doing more physical activity. And so it's really important you meet that energy need first of all. So you're consuming enough energy first and foremost. And then thinking about fueling around that training and specifically. So for most people, it's likely their training levels are going to increase in terms of volume and intensity. So if you think about kind of a shorter session, if you're going to the gym for a short exercise class, you're going for a short walk, you're normally okay just having water. And when you're upping your training, you need to be a bit more kind of conscious about how you're fueling around that and during it. So before you start training, if you're doing a more intense session or a longer duration session, so say you're going out for a full day hike, you want to be thinking about having a balanced meal before you go out that contains sufficient carbohydrate mainly. So carbohydrate is our main fuel for training. So a good sort of 1 to 2 fist size portion size of carbohydrate in that meal, some protein, perhaps lower fat and lower fiber, just to prevent any gastrointestinal discomfort when you're out. And then if it is a longer duration session or it's high intensity, you want to be taking on energy when you're out as well. So ideally consuming a high carbohydrate snack around every hour. So snacks such as banana, sweets, energy bars, sports drinks, and my favorite go-to is roast potatoes. So if I'm going out for a long run or a long trek, I'll batch cook some roast potatoes the night before, sprinkle them with a bit of salt, have them just in a bag that's easily accessible. And then every hour or so, I'll be munching on roast potatoes, and they're a great snack. Great
I am
snack to
up for that.
pack.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, so just thinking about really what you're going to enjoy, what you're going to enjoy eating when you're out, but just keeping on nibbling the whole day, really. And then alongside that, staying hydrated. So if you have plain water, that's fine if you're having it alongside your food. So if you're eating and drinking together, that helps to absorb the fluid better. So every time you have a bit of potato, or whatever your snack is, you want to be taking a gulp of water as well. And then on that note, I guess it's also important to think about training the gut. So just like training the muscles, training our cardiovascular system, we also need to train the gut to be able to take on that energy and to be able to metabolize that energy. So for those longer duration sessions, you need that constant supply. And if you only start doing that when you're on your expedition, you don't do it in training, your gut isn't going to be adapted to doing that. So then it's quite likely you're going to get some gut discomfort. So you can easily get stomach cramps, diarrhea, and so on. So you really want to be doing what you're going to be doing on the expedition in training, training your gut, getting it able to take on that fluid, take on that energy and utilize it. Yeah, so that's really important. On the hydration note, water is normally okay. If you are sweating a lot, if it's a hot expedition, if it's hot when you're training, then you might want to start thinking about electrolytes as well. So particularly sodium is important. Essentially having electrolytes in your drink means that you retain fluids better. You don't just kind of pee them straight back out again, which can happen with plain water. Also, if you're just having carbohydrate drinks, so sport drinks, and whilst that's good for energy, it's not so good for fluid and hydration. So you want to be consuming enough water or lower sodium drinks, lower carbohydrate drinks, sorry, with that. You can make your own homemade kind of energy electrolyte drink if you like. So that's really simply with around 600 millilitres of water, a 1/16 teaspoon of table salt, and about a teaspoon of maple syrup. If you mix that all together, then that's the perfect quantity for fluid absorption. So that is just for hydration.
Yeah, I think I've seen Ed make one of those before. He's got
Yeah,
like lemon juice in it as well. I don't know what that would be for in the
yeah, a
morning.
bit of energy. That's
Yeah,
fine, a bit of energy, a bit of taste as well. So that's
yeah.
cool.
Oh,
And then just to say quickly around sort of that whole topic, thinking about having a good meal afterwards as well. So just for that recovery component, you want to be having a balanced meal after your training session that contains sufficient carbohydrate to replenish their glycogen stores, some protein and some colourful fruit and veg as well.
wicked. Awesome. And so as well as like your hiking training, you also might be doing some like kind of more normal gym sessions, right? In terms of like building up your fitness, or just going to the gym in general. So
Yeah.
like how important is it for you to build muscle? And are there any particular things to do around that? Like I know when Ed was a rugby player, he'd have like a protein shake and loads of other random things. But
Yeah.
is it important to focus on building muscle for these hikes, and what nutrition is around that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, building muscle mass is really beneficial. It helps to support your joints, like reduce the risk of injury, and also build resistance to fatigue. So that endurance component, which is really beneficial. And just doing the training is going to mean that you're getting the stimulus that you need. So to build muscle, you need the stimulus and you need the nutrition to be right. So the stimulus may be sort of your walking up and down hill, that would be building some muscle strength, and also resistance exercise in the gym can be really helpful. So once you've got that stimulus, you're doing the training, then you need to be getting the nutrition right as well to support the adaptations to that training. So to repair and build muscle, it's important to provide the right type of nutrients. And most people will be aware of the importance of proteins, like you say with the protein shakes. So protein is really important for that. And it's important to remember that recovery really is a 24-hour process. So it's important to provide that protein in a continuous supply. So thinking about having a good source of protein with every main meal across the day, so approximately every 4 hours. And that's what's really key for protein synthesis. So you don't necessarily need to be concerned about having a kind of a large amount straight after training or anything like that. It's more getting that steady supply across the day is what is key. If you're doing a kind of a high volume week or you're doing back-to-back training days, then it can also be helpful to have some protein before bed. So having sort of a late night evening snack, sort of an hour or so before you go to sleep. And you want to be looking at around 20 to 30 grams of protein, which you can get easily in, say, Greek yogurt or soy yogurt. And that would be a good snack to have before bed to get that protein in.
Nice. Love it. So my uni days when I used to finish a netball match and drink a bottle of wine for my recovery weren't so good, right?
Maybe not optimal.
That was a long time ago. Awesome. Okay, thanks for that. So that's our training block.
Yeah.
What about when we're actually on an expedition? Because like I love that we've talked about. I love that idea of replicating like your training to being on the expedition. But is there anything else that we should be aware of when we're on the actual climb?
Yeah, sure. So I guess it depends on the type of expedition that you're doing, where you're going, your ability to carry food, how long the expedition is going to be, and whether it's a hut to hut trek, whether you're coming back down to the valley and getting a meal in the evening. So it depends on a lot of things. If you are eating out at a refuge or a mountain hut, then the meals can be quite variable. Sometimes they can be great, sometimes they're not so great. So it's good to go prepared to have enough snacks with you, not only to fuel yourself during the day, like I kind of spoke about in terms of fueling your training, thinking about those snacks every hour or so, but also to top up, sorry, on nutrition during the evenings if you are staying out back-to-back days. So having things like trail mix, protein bars, I love the peanut butter sachets to take, particularly in the morning. So if you've ever stayed at a refuge in the Alps, the breakfasts are particularly bad, and particularly in Italy, they're kind of
Not
normally
bread.
just cakes and sugary cereals, so not ideal. So peanut butter sachets I find great in the morning. I know some people that take up boiled eggs as well, which can be quite handy, particularly if you're just going for a couple of days. And then I think if you're on a longer trek, so thinking back to Nepal, it can
Mm.
be nice sometimes as well just to have some comfort food. So just something that you know you really enjoy. You're going to be eating similar food day in, day out. And so having something that's quite nice from home can be really nice just from that comfort perspective too.
Yeah. Dial back power, eh? That's what
Yeah, to have that power.
we
It's
had to get through that trip.
yeah, I think it was Jamie that took Twiglets and they were just that tasted amazing.
Oh my God. Yeah, it just like you need those moments where you're like, ah,
Yeah.
because they really bring so much more joy than they would if you could just access them from your cupboard at home, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I think my favorite snack is a summit, so we call a summit sausage. So like any kind of like a bit of chorizo or anything, 'cause it just
Mm,
keeps quite well and you can just like bite it off every now and again when you
yeah,
get some get a break.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, flavor fatigue's a real thing, particularly if you're fueling a lot. So if you are thinking about having a snack every hour or so, you're consuming quite a lot of food.
Yeah.
So like I find this a lot of the trail runners that are really taking on quite high volumes of food, just thinking about different flavors so you don't just get so sick of eating the same thing. A lot of the kind of sports supplements and sweets and blocks and chews are very kind of sugary, which is
Yeah.
okay if you have a little bit, particularly if you're feeling really low on energy. But if you're eating that constantly, you can get sick of it really quick. So having different types of snacks, savory and sweet, different flavors can be really helpful.
Yeah.
And also if you're at altitude, your appetite can go quite a lot. So you really want to be having food there that you're going to find appetizing and that you want to eat.
Fair. Yeah, yeah. Just on that, with the like energy gels that you can get, would you recommend like if you don't really need them, not taking them? Like, are they kind of like a last resort bit of energy, or are they fine to take? Like, I've heard they can make you crash sometimes.
I mean, they're great in terms of energy. They're designed specifically in terms of the balance of carbohydrates to be easily absorbed for quick energy in the body. It would be more sort of making sure if you are having them, you train with them because they can cause GI kind of upset. You can get a lot of gut problems with them if you're not used to them. So I'd say definitely train with them if you want to use them. But for long hikes, when you're not necessarily running and you're walking and you can take the time to eat, you're probably better off having real food and having, say, a gel with you for those occasions when you're just feeling really low on energy and really not feeling like eating. Then in
Yeah,
those moments, it can be quite helpful. But that
yeah,
might be once or twice on an expedition rather than sort of what you're going to every hour.
yeah. Like not relying on them. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So, speaking about that lack of energy, so a fair few of the beneficiaries do suffer from fatigue due to like various either like brain injuries or spinal cord injury, lots of different reasons to be fair. Is there anything that they should be mindful of when on the expedition, or even training for the expedition?
Yeah, sure. I think if you experience fatigue, then on top of sort of the physical exertion of doing an expedition or increasing your training volume, it's just even more important to stay on top of the hydration and nutrition needs. So you don't want to exacerbate that fatigue any further. So in terms of the training block, you want to build that up gradually. So you're not going from sort of nothing to a lot of training in one go. So just to build that up bit by bit, and to do the same with the nutrition. In terms of hydration, I'd say that's even more vital. So even mild dehydration. So mild dehydration is normally classified as a fluid loss of around 3% in body weight. That can really increase the effort of exercise. So it could just feel a lot harder to do when you're just mildly dehydrated. And then when you're dehydrated as well, it can mean that the body uses more glycogen from the muscles. So you're using more of that energy store just because you're dehydrated, which means you then run out of energy sooner. So it's really, really important to stay on top of your hydration first and foremost. And again, if you're at altitude, particularly if you're not used to it, then it can affect your hydration. So you have an increased hydration need when you're at altitude. Your respiration rate increases, your breathing's heavier. It has kind of diuretic effects, so you have an increased need to urinate. So I don't know if you've been at altitude and felt like you need a wee all the time, that's why. And it can also alter your thirst response, so you don't necessarily always feel like drinking. So you have to be really conscious about staying hydrated. If you can avoid alcohol, and I know it's not always easy, but if you're somebody that experiences fatigue, then you're on a trip that you find physically exerting, and then you're drinking alcohol on top of that, it's likely you're going to start the next day dehydrated, which means that whole day is going to be so much harder for you. So if you can avoid it, if you are going to have some, just make sure you really hydrate alongside that, having enough water, perhaps even an electrolyte drink as well.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. That makes sense. And then what about if you're vegan or veggie? Is there anything that you need to take more of, be mindful of when on an expedition or training for it?
I think not so much sort of in training. There's no problem in terms of getting all your requirements. If you're out on an expedition, I'd say first of all, just let whoever is running that trip know, because you can sort of plan ahead with refuges to ask for vegan and veggie options. Depending where you are, that can be limited. It's normally limited in terms of the protein content. So in most places, most mountain huts, you can get enough carbohydrate. So there's lots of meals that are kind of based around pasta or rice or polenta if you're out in the Alps, which is good for the carbohydrate component. So it might be worth just taking some more protein snacks with you if you are vegan or veggie, then, because you won't be having the meat, which is normally the main protein source in the huts. So protein bars, perhaps some nuts or something like that would be helpful.
Yeah. It's quite limited options, isn't it? So if you can plan ahead, then that is better. But then like places like Nepal was like the veggie option was actually the better option sometimes, wasn't it? Because they had more variety and the meat wasn't too great either. So
Exactly.
yeah. So,
Yeah. I mean, Nepal was actually really good in terms of the nutrition content of the meals.
yeah.
You were eating the same thing day in, day out. So by the end, you kind of had enough of dial-back power. But in terms of the nutritional kind of quality of the meal, it was actually really good and great for vegan veggies too, I'd say.
Yeah,
More
that's why they're absolutely
in the Alps, seems to be more meat based. So if you're doing a trip in the Alps, then think about bringing a bit of protein.
Cool, great. So now on to a few of the questions people asked that were a bit more specific, but so gut health is something that I've heard so much more in the last kind of year, 6 months than ever before. And I know that it is a bit of a minefield on kind of what that even means and what you can be eating to improve your gut health. So does your gut health impact your mood and your energy, and like are there any key things that we need to know about it?
Yeah, sure. Huge question, like you say. And I mean, gut health really relates to the functioning of the entire digestive tract, so sort of the 9-meter-ish tube from entry to exit. But I think all of this kind of growing interest in gut health has been around the explosion in the research area of the gut microbiome, which has really kind of just started in the past 20 years and kind of taken off more in the past 10. So the gut microbiome is essentially the trillions of microorganisms that live in the digestive tract, mainly in the large intestine. And these microorganisms, sort of microbes, archaea, viruses, and so on, have been shown to be critical for our health. So they're kind of really important in many different functions. They're really important for our immunity. Around 70% of our immune cells actually reside in the gut. They produce all these beneficial metabolites that have anti-inflammatory effects in the body. And there's also kind of one mechanism that has been shown to potentially link to our brain health, our mood, and our mental health as well. So there's kind of many far-reaching effects of the gut. And so hence why this gut health has kind of been linked to everything. And it's kind of still very much kind of an evolving area of research, but definitely really interesting. And I think what's particularly exciting about it is that we can directly manipulate the gut microbiome through our diet and our lifestyle. So it's something that we kind of have direct control over. And I guess when we're thinking about what's important for that, dietary fiber is what's key for the gut microbiome. So dietary fiber meaning sort of whole plant foods, really. So whole grains, beans, legumes, fruits, veggies, nuts and seeds. So including a variety of those foods is what then feeds the gut microbiome, so that then those microbes can kind of get to work and do all those beneficial functions for our health. But yeah, many far-reaching effects. And you asked specifically around mood. So I guess sort of linking back the kind of whole food and mood, sorry, excuse me, area. I think it's also important to think about how our nutrition is important for the structure and function of our brain as well as our body. So we mentioned about proteins being really important for building muscle, which they absolutely are, but they're also really important for building neurotransmitters in our brain. Carbohydrates are the main energy source for our body for exercise, but also the main energy source for the brain. And our brain is hungry. It's the hungriest organ in the body. And it's only 2% of our body weight, but it consumes approximately 20% of our daily energy requirements. Wow. So it therefore needs that kind of continuous energy supply, and that energy obviously comes from the food that we eat. So many ways that kind of food and mood's interrelated, and the gut microbiome comes into play as well.
Yeah, awesome. I think yeah, because I did a bit of digging on the microbiome, and it was saying about fiber. So I did a bit of a deep dive into like what foods I can eat, and there's like loads of handy recipes. Like just if you Google like high fiber meals, and like isn't it like getting a balance of like different fibers in your diet? So so you're not just eating, if you're only eating broccoli, you're not going to get as many benefits if you're trying loads of different fruits and veg. Is that right? Did I make that up?
Exactly, right. So it's not only like the amount of fiber that's important, but also the diversity of fiber. So what's been shown is that the diversity of fiber seems to be related to the diversity of the gut microbiome, and a diverse gut microbiome is then linked to positive health. So like you say, a range of different fiber, a range of those different plant foods. So if you think about the different microbes in your stomach, sort of some might like broccoli, but others might like carrot and parsnips. So you want to be feeding them all with this range of foods so they're all happy.
Okay, right, fussy buggers, aren't they? Wicked. And then, so yeah, final question, and this is one that I really thought hard on actually, is like supplements, because I think with Instagram these days, I get a lot of adverts telling me to get this and get that, and you must have this to be healthy, you must have that. What are the benefits of taking supplements? Should we be taking them? Which ones, I guess, if so? And then I'm interested in that, like, are real foods better? And then you kind of like, you're not using it as a replacement, which I guess is in the name, right? But yeah, tell me your opinion on supplements.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think I would always advocate for a food first approach. So as much as you can, getting your nutrition from your balanced diet, whole foods. So supplements, like you say, should be designed to do exactly that, which is supplement the diet. So above what you're having in terms of your base diet. And it's important to remember that more isn't necessarily better. So it's possible to consume excess nutrients in supplement form, which can have negative side effects. It can also, in some cases, be dangerous. So when we think about supplements, they're often in pharmaceutical doses rather than a nutritional dose, which is meaning basically that you can possibly, I don't know, overdose almost in terms of what you're getting, particularly when you think about certain minerals and fat-soluble vitamins. They can build up in the system, which can result in toxicity. So it's really not as simple as thinking, oh, I just consume more vitamins to be healthy. And also whole foods don't just contain nutrients, they also contain all these bioactive compounds. So if you've heard of phytochemicals, they're these kind of beneficial plant compounds that give fruit and veg their bright, lovely colours. And they've been shown to have lots of beneficial health effects as well. So when you're eating a whole food, it's wrapped up in lots of different sort of components rather than just the nutrients that are kind of extracted in supplement form. So whether you require supplements or not is really individual. So it's really hard to say sort of across the board, because it really would come down to kind of individual assessment, looking at somebody's background, what their symptoms are, what their diet's like, to see whether any would be beneficial. But speaking broadly, vitamin D is recommended for everybody in the UK during the winter months, or any northern hemisphere country, and that's because we primarily synthesize vitamin D from the sun, which we obviously don't get much of during the winter. So looking at myself so grey and white. But yeah, taking vitamin D of 10 micrograms a day is what is recommended across the board for everyone. And then also another kind of supplement which would be recommended at the general population level would be omega-3. Omega-3, if you don't consume oily fish, so that's the main food source, so if you're not getting that in your diet, omega-3 is really important for many different areas of health, so looking to supplement with that. And if you are a vegan, then you can get a vegan omega-3 supplement, which comes from microalgae, so it's also possible to get the supplementation there.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, Ed's got like a glass bottle in the fridge, which is omega-3s, and you just have like a swig of it each morning. So I've started doing that, and it actually tastes nice.
Yeah, oh, amazing.
Yeah. I'll send you
Not
it.
like the old cod liver oil.
No, exactly. That's
how give you.
Wicked, awesome. Yeah, because I guess you can spend a lot of money on. I don't think they're bad, are they? Like things like super greens and yeah, like powders like that, they can be really beneficial. But if you're going to start with food first, and then if you need to get any extra nutrients, then they're okay. I think we've got a discount code with Stark's Nutrition, so we can get some extra supplements. So would you recommend taking super greens?
Again, it depends. I mean, if you're having super greens, then you're stripping out all of the fiber. And like I said, sort of if you're having, say, green leafy veg, and you don't only get those nutrients, you also get the fiber, you get all those beneficial plant compounds. So you're really better off thinking about where can I get this from my diet and food first, because that's going to be more beneficial. And then if you want to top up, then something like the super greens can be helpful. Again, if you're doing sort of a long expedition and you're away for a long time and you know you're not necessarily going to have access to your green leafy veg like you would do normally, then that can be helpful then to kind of to get them in and top up. So in Nepal or something like that, maybe. And again, protein, like we spoke about protein before. If you are looking to build some muscle mass, then it is quite a lot of protein to be getting from food. So it's more just kind of that convenient component of I can't necessarily keep eating this much protein across the day, but I can have a shake before I go to sleep, or I can have a shake after I've done my training, so I know I'm not going to eat for another 4 hours. So in those moments, it can be beneficial.
That's good to know. Yeah. It does make life easier sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Wicked. Anything else you want to add? I think that was brilliant.
Not really. All I'd say on the supplements point, just one more point I'd say is about herbal supplements. So I've spoken to quite a few people recently, and I think it can be a little bit dangerous sometimes when it comes to herbal supplements, because people think that, oh, it's natural, so it's okay. But just because it's natural doesn't mean that it's benign, or it doesn't kind of guarantee its safety. And actually, when you think about pharmaceuticals, they've been tested extensively to get the kind of level right and to make sure they're safe. Whereas herbal supplements can be sold without that. They don't have to pass the same rigorous testing. And they can also be marketed with claims that aren't backed by science. so they're not kind of held up to the same standards. So therefore, and people can be misled quite easily just through some good marketing. So don't be fooled by herbal supplements. They can have a place, but they're not necessarily safe just because they're herbal.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jess. I'm sure, like, if anybody has any further questions, then please do get in touch, and me, or I won't, Jess will do her best at answering them. But yeah, thank you very much, and we'll start.